Q&A, I did want to start with a bit more of a general question for the whole panel, and that's, what do you wish more people knew about the work that you do? Just an easy one to start with. Do you want me to rephrase? To rephrase, what's a common misconception about working in the space industry that you'd like to address today or dispel a myth about?
Having a job description of rocket scientist sounds really cool and glamorous. You wind up spending a lot of your time in the lab running the same experiment over and over and over again, because this is how you do science rather than just have an accident, right? As the old saying goes, it takes 20 years of hard work to be an overnight success.
Let's see if this works. So what I've noticed in the past couple of years, maybe also because the public in Australia, it has been exposed to space, but not so much, that there is this idea that space is just a rocket going to Mars. Mm-hmm. That is true. This is the biggest issue that we have in our community is not understanding what is space for. You know, when I came out of the chat, there were a couple of tweets of people that say, oh, finally I understand what is space for. We need to understand what is space for. It's really, really, really important. I think it's the biggest important thing that we need to work on, all us together. You know, when I'm a fleet, a fleet is quite well exposed on the PR and the media. I've got journalists talking to me all the time, and I cannot get the question far from, what is the rocket you're going to launch for? And I'm like, let's talk about the amazing things that we're doing. They're like, oh, what is the rocket? And I know that rockets are amazing. I love rockets. I wish I could build one. But we need to understand this because it's important for our community. If you understand, if we all take time to understand what is space for, maybe we justify the tremendous work that everyone is trying to do to make our community a better place. So what it means, increasing the GDP, having more people working on these things, and being like a national pride, right? And by the way, if you can also build rockets in Australia, I mean, just not saying, but this is important.
I want to pick up on something that you said, because like South Australia is where it all happened in the past. And the Woomera rocket launch range is still an incredibly busy, mostly for defence testing and things, it's still an incredibly busy place. So we had it all here. We had Australia's space history here. We were the third or fourth maybe nation to launch our own satellite. We don't celebrate this. People don't know about it. We're not building on this incredible heritage and history that we have and bring it with us into all of the amazing things that are being done now. And just coming back to that theory of space power, where that first period up to the end of the Cold War was about national prestige. So Australia was not interested in prestige. And the more I think about it, I often ask myself, why is it that we don't celebrate our own amazing space history? And I think it's because for us that period was actually about fear. The reason we were involved in space was to get access to defence things so that we'd never be in that situation we were in the Russian scare in the 1890s, in the Second World War, where it looked like we would be abandoned by the UK to be invaded. So maybe that's why we don't celebrate this stuff, because it was fear, not prestige, that drove our space history. But I still think it's so important that people know more about it and know that everything amazing that's happening now, because I was thinking, Flavia, I thought it was much longer you'd been here. It feels like you've been
like a
part of the space scene for a long
years.
time.
Couple of years.
4 years, you're right. In that time, we've come from having forgotten our space history to creating a new one as it's happening. And I think people need to know more about it and celebrate it more. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, I think that there are two specific things that I'd like to point out and dispel. The first one, in the United States, we had many people that when we decided to end the shuttle program, they would come up to us and say, oh, it's so sad that NASA is shutting down. And that's only because people have a perception in their minds that NASA is the shuttle program. and NASA is human exploration. But they have no idea about all of the things that I shared with you today, about the science that takes place and the transfer of the information to improve the quality of life for everyone. So the shuttle program was only one part of what it is that we do, and we do have next generation capability that's coming on board. The second thing I'd like to dispel or just make sure that people know is that space is for absolutely everyone. It's not about just scientists and engineers. Because at NASA, we have every single career that you can actually imagine. We have our own accountants, and it's important for us to know that those accountants play just as critical a role in the success of our agency as the scientists and engineers do. We have photographers. I mean, we have lawyers, a whole staff of lawyers. Every kind of profession that you can imagine, we've got them at NASA. And so it is important for everyone to know that whatever your field or in your career path is, you can still play a major role in space endeavors. And so that's something I wanted to put out there.
Good point.
Dr. Gorman, that's something that you touched on when you were talking about the digital divide.
Yeah.
What is currently being done, and what do we need to do, and what can us sitting, watching, listening to you talk do to get the message out there that this is something for everyone, and how do we get more people involved in the space industry?
I think one thing that this is about, and we heard some of this yesterday, is science communication. And I mean, I'm on Twitter. I don't know how many people here are on Twitter, but there's an amazing space crowd, lots of Australians, lots of people from overseas who are talking about this all the time. And it's really easy just to ask someone, what's this about? What's going on here? I think we're starting to get, I don't know what you two think, we're starting to get journalists who are pretty savvy about space, who know which questions to ask, who know how to write a story that's going to help people understand what's going on. For me, something I think is really critical is for the general public to be informed and to ask questions at the right time. So Elon Musk is planning to launch 12,000 small satellites into low Earth orbit sometime in the next 12 years. And his reasoning is that this will bring internet connectivity to large parts of the world that haven't had it before. But no one has asked him the question, or if they have asked him the question, he might not have listened. No one has said, but do people want it? If they want it, do they want it this way, or would they rather have it this way? Like, whose needs are you serving here? Who will be included? Who will be excluded? What are the dangers? So I don't see anything in the dialogues around this that deals with these questions. And again, he's a corporation. He isn't accountable to us. I think people need to be knowledged up so they can ask those questions. I think that's one of the most powerful things that you can do, to just know enough to ask the right question at the right time and say, no, I need an answer to this. So that's something everybody can do, and we're so dependent on space services in our everyday lives now. I think people can't anymore forget that we're connected to that stuff up there, and it can be just as simple as have some awareness of what's going on and just ask the questions. If they're important to you, then somebody should be able to give you an answer. That's my thoughts on this.
Flavia, I know that you get as excited about this as I do, the space agency. How important is it for furthering the industry here in Australia, and for you personally, and for those 80 plus startups?
I would be a bit naughty to answer. I think not so big. I mean, commercial space needs great entrepreneur, clients, investors, not agency. We have done it for a long time without. However, that's the point. Space entrepreneurship is not like building a software in a living room. It's got way more barriers. So to actually have this at large scale, we need support. And you actually need to come a fleet for one day to understand what kind of support we need. To launch a satellite in space or launch a rocket, it's not just a piece of cake. You cannot simply put a couple of things online and there you go. You need licensing, here and there, in space, on the ground, in rockets. It's really a complicated exercise that has got a million pieces of the puzzle, heavily regulated, I'm afraid. No matter if you've got a small satellites or a big, this is where they need to help. You know, what we really need is one voice where everyone can find us and bringing down those barriers so that innovation can go fast. Innovation doesn't go fast when you have to spend months for a certificate of a license. It just slows down. As a startup, if an innovation has got a window of time to happen, I'm afraid, and it's a matter of years. And if you have to wait for regulation and things, it just disappear and it dies. This is where the space agencies can really help. If you think about commercial space, it has exported as science. And science feeds commercial space, and R&D feeds commercial space. And also there are things that are completely unrelated to commercial yet, like exploration and things like that. So it's a complex exercise. And having someone to back us up, it's incredible. And I can tell you, you know, last week on Friday, there were few satellites that needed to be, go on a SpaceX launch. And we didn't have a license yet because there were delays. And 6 months ago, I would have been like, oh God, like this is gonna be so bad. But in a couple of phone calls, we all had license this morning. So that's what we need. We need people to help us innovate without the environment slowing us down. Space entrepreneurship and space innovation is really hard. It's entrepreneurship on steroids because you need a rocket and you don't even know if it's gonna work. So it needs a lot of support, and this is what I hope is gonna come.
Now, Dr. Neumann, you did talk about how you're in the lab doing the same thing over and over and over again, and that's a common misconception about your role. But I do want to ask you, does space ever stop being cool?
No.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to our wonderful panelists and speakers for this session. Thank you very much. We are going to take a short break for lunch now. I believe it's around 40 minutes, but don't quote me on that. I read it once and didn't look at it again. And we will be back in the afternoon for the next session. So thank you very much.